Hello, Heather Broadbent here, a violinist instructor of online violin education where I train violinists all over the world how to improve their technical skill sets for more melodic playing. Welcome to day 4 of Fantastic Fundamentals. Today we're going to be discussing how to strengthen the fingers of your left hand, some exercises that you can do, and what exercises you can do on the violin for the specific fingers. And I have a wonderful PDF here that you have a link to in the email so you can start practicing these fingers right away. Okay, so first off, when violinists typically learn the fingers and bring the fingers to the violin, they typically learn the third finger, first, second, and third finger, and then the fourth finger gets neglected for a long time. Now, if you've been following me, you see that I put a lot of emphasis on the fourth finger. I've written books called Fourth Finger Fitness. I talk about setting the left hand up with the fourth finger first. We're going to be talking about that today. And I have a wonderful video about how to strengthen your fourth finger as well. And I have that link for you in your email, so you can check that out. So, first off, I'm going to show you a different order to check out your fingers of the left hand, all right? So typically, if you learned a traditional method and you learned Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the first note that you learned was first finger on the E string for F sharp. The first fingered note, of course you've played the open strings, but the first fingered note would be F sharp, first finger on the violin. Now what happens is when violinists play that first finger, their hand flips out, and then when they try to play the other fingers, they're coming down like this. Now, you learned in the very first video that our left hand needs to face the fingerboard. So if we're flipped out, what I call flipped out, that makes it kind of hard to get those other fingers to come in, okay? And they're not supported at all. We want to support all our fingers. So what I'd like you to do today is actually to start with the second finger. So let's start with our C sharp. Okay, so C sharp is high 2 on the A string, all right? So let's just set up that C sharp, and then go ahead and play your fourth finger from there. Fourth finger on the A string, which will match your open E. Okay, so check out your left hand. Make sure you're not tensing or gripping, that you do have a bit of a space here, so you're not squeezing the fingerboard or the neck, okay? We don't want to squeeze, no squeezing, all right? Have a bit of a space. That whole time I kept the 4 and the 2 down. Okay, so you have that nice and set up. And then let's go ahead and play our third finger, and then go to the first finger. Okay, now when you play the first finger, don't let your hand flip out, all right? So I'll do that again, something you can practice as well, and stop the video to get your violin out and play it. So we start with C sharp, high 2 on the A string. We go to E, which is our fourth finger on the A string. You can check it with your open E. And just check your left hand, that it's set up really nice. Everybody's nice and relaxed. Keep that second finger down, lift your 4, and play your 3. Okay, and then from there, play your 1 without shifting your hand around, okay? Then, let's go ahead and walk up the scale. So we'll play A, B, C sharp, D. We'll go to E, our fourth finger, okay? So, that was A, B, C sharp, D, E, A, first finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger. Now, the first finger pattern that you learn on the violin is the 2 and the 3, typically, the 2 and 3 touching, and that's what we just did, is A, B, C sharp, D, and E. C sharp to D is a half step, and that means that your fingers touch on the violin. On the piano, that means there's no key that lives in the middle. And this is something that's also taught in the music literacy, how to read music and more, half steps and whole steps. And they're so important because they are the builders of our scales, all right? And that's what we're going to get to in this video as well. But before that, I'm just going to refer you to the playlist I put together. I have an exercise called Jumping Fingers to help get these fingers going, okay, so that they get nice and strengthened individually. So do check out the Jumping Fingers exercise. And when you bring these fingers to the violin, you want them to be nice tabletops, okay? You see that? Nice tabletops. And what I mean by tabletops, they have a nice square-like look to them, okay? We don't have this flattening out or collapsing at the knuckle. See if I can get that. It's very difficult for me to even do that. But some violinists have when they first start, have a little bit of an issue with that knuckle collapsing, and you don't want that knuckle to collapse. And actually, that's funny, because when I was demonstrating that, my pinky went in what I call the basement, because I was having a difficult time actually playing it incorrectly. And when I did that, the pinky went in the basement, which reminds me, I had students that sometimes their pinky would live in the basement, is what I call it. And we don't want our pinkies down there, because they need to be ready to go and be ready to play. And with your fingers, you do want to keep them what I call hovering like helicopters over their spots. We don't want to have flip out hand and then they have to travel, because it's going to lead to more inconsistent intonation, okay? Now, how do you know if you're playing in tune? One, we have the ring of the violin. So I'm going to just show you a ringing 3, or actually play a ringing 3 for you. So that's a ringing 3, and it's after I play it, you can hear the ring. Okay, all the third fingers will resonate the open strings and will have a ring. Okay, you can also check by playing your third finger. Take the third finger on the A string and play it with open D. Okay, and you can check to see if it's in tune. Before you get obsessed about if you're playing in tune or not, do make sure your violin is completely in tune. If your violin's not in tune, then you're going to be training your fingers to go in the incorrect places. And this brings up a point whether to tape or not tape. And I had somebody ask this question as they were learning positions, if they should put tapes on their violin. And my take on tapes is this. I would set up tapes on my very beginning violin students, but would take them off as immediately as possible. I would only put them on there as a reference, and then also talk to them how they can know where those fingers go without the tapes, and then we take the tapes off, even if it's one by one, immediately as soon as they can hear, because I don't like to have the violinist rely visually on tapes. I'd rather get their ears turned on right away. So if you're learning positions, I wouldn't tape, because by the time you're learning positions, you should be able to have an ear that tells you if the pitch is in tune or not. So I never taped at all for my violinists that were learning positions, and wouldn't recommend it at all. Okay, so that's my opinion on tapes. Put them on at the very beginning, but immediately take them off. And maybe sometimes the violinists at the beginning don't even need the tapes, and I don't put it on. So I would use it with my students only if absolutely necessary. Okay, now you have an idea of how to play a little bit in tune by checking with open strings, and then your fingers are sitting as tabletops. I have an excerpt from my book Finger Adventures that you can check out. That's the very, very first book that I have written for the beginning violinist, newbie violinist. After Finger Adventures, you can move on to strengthening exercises for first position. And for everybody that's watching this video that's ready to move out of first position, you can do some strengthening exercises and play some scales within another position as your challenge for today. So in day 5, we'll be talking a little bit about rhythm. See you then.